Today's video is sponsored by Audio. As far as wireless handheld microphones go, I'm speaking into the one I feel the safest with for getting my job done, and that's primarily because this can record into itself internally in addition to also being a wireless handset transmitter. This is the Rode Interview Pro, and I do find this to be a pretty good sounding microphone. My dialogue for the entirety of this video is being recorded through this, while the really good background music you're hearing is from our sponsor Audio. They've recently just launched Elements, which gives you access to the individual instrumental stems for every single track, and this lets you customize the music to fit your project specifically, essentially giving you complete creative control to remix the track. But on Audio, there's also the ability for you to search for a piece of music using a piece of music you've heard before. If you come across a track on YouTube, TikTok, Spotify, or SoundCloud which would really fit your video, just copy the link for that track or the video containing that track and paste that into Audio's Link Match AI tool. Audio would then compare that against their collection of music and show you the tracks which sound the most similar. You get an unlimited number of Link Match AI searches with an Audio Pro subscription, which Audio is offering my viewers 70% off the first year using my code ZY70. This includes unlimited sound effects downloads, unlimited music with Elements, along with unlimited Link Match AI searches. Use the link below with my code to enjoy 70% off your first year of Audio Pro. It definitely was not my first guess, but the Rode Interview Pro is actually an omnidirectional condenser microphone. Unscrewing the mesh reveals a shock-mounted capsule, roughly half an inch in diameter, and being designed as an interview mic, the omnidirectional polar pattern actually makes a lot of sense because you don't really need to worry about how you're pointing it, you just need to hold it somewhat close. Even though this is an end address microphone, despite me speaking 90 degrees off axis right into the side of it, the amplitude and color of the sound doesn't really change much. Back at Tokyo's X Summit earlier this year, I interviewed Fujifilm about the X106, and the audio was all from the Interview Pro. That was actually quite a perfect environment for the Interview Pro to shine because it was a hall full of people, and despite having an omnidirectional pickup, because of the proximity we were speaking to the mic, I still ended up with crystal clear dialogue. I'll leave a link to that interview for anyone interested. It's this corner. Rode does ship the Interview Pro with a foam pop filter, but so far I've found the internal pop filter built directly into the mesh grille very much sufficient to block plosives quite effectively. Even if I quite purposely try to pop some plosives directly into the end of the mic and in rather close proximity as well, it's still holding up very, very well. Handling noise is also very well suppressed. It's not to the point where it's completely inaudible, but you really have to be fumbling the mic for it to become an issue. I'd say all things considered, the capsule is sufficiently isolated for a handheld microphone. Rode's currently selling the Interview Pro as a standalone unit for $249. Having internal recording, it can very much be used as a standalone recorder, but as a transmitter, it's compatible with Rode's Series 4 receivers, which is actually quite a number of products. You can send a signal from this to a wireless Go 2, a wireless Me, wireless Pro, the Rodecaster Duo, Rodecaster Pro 2, and also a Rode Streamer X. But really, it's the internal recording which makes this so appealing. Whatever you're shooting on, and that could be just your phone, you don't have to worry about connecting receivers, plugging cables in correctly, or setting gain levels. Just record and sync the audio later in post. Internally, it records in 32-bit float, so if you're using the internal recording, you really do not need to bother with gain. In fact, the gain settings do not affect the volume of the internal recording at all. It always just records at a consistent volume, and if it's too quiet or too loud, just adjust it in post without any loss of quality. That's the magic of 32-bit float. That being said, the benefits of 32-bit float do not extend to the wireless receiver. So if you're using this as a wireless setup, you will need to make sure that your levels are set correctly, though in that case, there's still no reason to not record a 32-bit float to local backup on the Interview Pro itself. This does come with Rode's gain assist technology, so it can intelligently adjust its own gain automatically. So either way, whether you're recording internally or to a wireless receiver, this is still a mic which you can pick up and roll without worrying about gain. However, as nice as it is to have 32-bit float, it is possible to hear distortion in your recording if your source is still too loud. And that's because the capsule in here has a max SPL of 122 decibels, which isn't considered to be very high. So it's possible to overload the capsule, and when the signal coming from the capsule is already distorted, a 32-bit float file isn't really going to help. But for that to happen, the mic needs to be pretty much right up against someone's mouth, and the person speaking needs to be really projecting. So if you're recording someone with a particularly big voice, bear in mind you don't really want the mic to be too close. And as long as nobody's shouting right into the mic, your audio should sound just fine. Now, when I mentioned that the Interview Pro records internally, it's literally to its own internal storage like the Wireless Pro or Wireless Go 2. There's no micro SD cards, it's built-in storage with 32 gigabytes of capacity, which is good for over 40 hours of recording. And you would access those recordings by hooking the mic up to a computer via its USB-C port. The port is quite hidden. You would have to unscrew the handle sleeve and slide it out to reveal the port. It's also the same port you would charge the mic's battery with, though you can also find some contact pins near the mic's antenna for charging the mic via the Rode RS1 charging dock. Hardware-wise, there's only 3 buttons: a power button, a mute button, and a record button. The mute and record buttons light up when activated, which I really appreciate, because if you see the button light up red, it's visual confirmation that sound is in fact rolling. It's also not possible to accidentally mute the internal recording, because the mute button only affects the wireless receivers. The internal recording bypasses the mute status. For everything else in terms of settings, you would have to connect the Interview Pro to a phone or computer and configure it via Rode Central. One of my personal favorite customizations is enabling the power button to drop a metadata marker with a short press. If you're doing a long interview, it's a great way to mark an interesting segment for later, though use this carefully because the button press can be audible in the recording, so you might want to do this between sentences. There it was again. One final remark I wish to make after holding this mic up for the entire duration of this video is the Interview Pro actually weighs a lot less than it looks. This weighs only 250 grams, which is super light for a wireless microphone with a transmitter inside, built-in battery, as well as a recorder inside. It's an easy product from Rode to recommend whether you intend to use it with any of the Series 4 receivers or as a standalone recorder mic. It's a super convenient and reassuring way to capture audio wherever you bring this. Links below for anyone interested, and once again, thanks to Audio for sponsoring today's video, and I'll be seeing you around.